Because this here is Getaway Driver 101, and today I'm going to be giving you all an explanation on how to set up, how to properly benchmark your computer, and what software you should use for benchmarking. Now, what I recommend is getting HW hardware monitor. There's a few different ways you can get it. That's one tool you're going to need. Cinebench you can get from Microsoft Store. And then Heaven Benchmark you can go download from Heaven, so you can go there. And then I also recommend making sure that all your settings and everything are up to date and done with. So we're gonna go ahead and get right on into it. So if you're experiencing crashes and stability problems and weird issues and glitches, and you aren't for sure exactly if it's your CPU, if it's your graphics card, if it's the whole computer, if it's the motherboard, if it's the memory, well, I recommend starting simple first. Simplest tool you can check is right here, your event viewer. Now, a lot of people don't understand this. You don't need to look at all these errors. These errors aren't the ones that you should care about. You're gonna experience at least one error a day. It's normal. I mean, on an average scale of a computer, you experience at least one error a day. It can be small, it can be stupid. This here is like update error. Open core. Yeah, just random stuff. Windows does successfully, system ran successfully, automation successfully. This is basically everything that's been successful running in the last like few minutes, few hours, few days, whatever. Information that's something you don't need to worry about. You need to worry about those critical. If you're experiencing critical and you're getting like error, let's say 45. 45 is a pretty big error, and most people don't know what 45 is. 45 means that you are experiencing a possible power supply issue or overclocked overdone. Now, overclocked overdone sounds like a crazy thing. How could you get an error from something like that, and how could the computer know that it's overclocked is pushed too far? Well, it does. It does know, and it will give you a chance to go in and pull the clock down. If you aren't for sure how to bring your clock back down, that is simple. You just go in and either lower your power mode setting in Power Editor, or you go into MSI Afterburner if you're running an actual overclock. If you're running BIOS overclocks, then that's where you're going to need benchmark tools. And that's what we're going to move on to next. Or if you're experiencing random crashes related with running applications of some kind. So if you're running games and they're crashing, this may be a good way to check those games. Start with the Cinebench and HW hardware, pull them both up together, and you're going to start with a single core. Now, this is not something you want to run all the time because it is hard on the equipment and it's hard on the computer, but you can run it periodically to check your equipment. HW hardware monitor will tell you your health status. If your SSD is below 70%, I recommend getting a new one before it fails. 96 is pretty average. 100% should be great or awesome. 5.5 because that's max, or sometimes 5.6. Occasionally I've seen it hit as high as 5.7, but very rarely. And then we're going to run multi-core. Now, really, realistically, you should let this run for about 5 minutes. What you need to check here is what your temperatures are hitting. Now, obviously, I did not hit that. I ran this earlier because I was checking everything out on the computer before I started this video. Like I said, I was preparing this video. And so the way this works is you just want to make sure you're not hitting 100C. If you hit a 100C just on one core for a fraction, that's fine. That's normal. But if you're hitting 100C, boom, bing, boom, boom, bing, 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 just like everything is just hidden, then more than likely you're dealing with a thermal throttle problem, a bad cooler, a cooler that may not be put in the computer correctly, maybe not enough thermal paste, maybe the thermal paste is bad, maybe the fans aren't working correctly, things like that. So you just want to start from there. But on average, this here's your lowest, this here's your live running, and this here's your hottest. Now, as you can see, the highest I've actually hit is 100, but I'm going to rule that out because that's on P max. And really, if you see, none of these P cores actually hit 95 and 98 on package. Right now, package is running 90. But as long as you go at least 5 minutes in, if you don't hit 100 on 5 minutes in, realistically, you're not going to hit 100 playing your game. Now, will your games hit 70? Yes, your games can hit 70C. Your games can make the computer run 70C. If you experienced a crash when running Benchmark, Cinebench, I recommend checking and going to all settings, reverting all settings back to default, and then rerunning Benchmark. And if it does not fail and the benchmark succeeds, and you're able to run it for 5 minutes, or run single core for the full 10 minute, and you decide to run the full 10 minute multi-core because you ain't worried about temperatures. I'm not trying to run this because I've ran it 3 or 4 times trying to get this video to go well, and sometimes videos have a hard time being put together. But moving from there, as you can see, the temperatures drop all the way back down to the 30s and 40s. Now, for average, your benchmark is going to run what? I've never okay, let me close it. DLXX11 error, that was strange. Yeah, so sometimes this program don't work like it's supposed to. It's kind of old. But right here, you're going to watch your average FPS. Now, my FPS is being hit by about 15% because of OBS and the voice quality modifier in OBS. But you want to make sure that your graphics card is running a proper clock speed. You're not experiencing any graphical glitches. Now, I recommend Heaven Benchmark because it's an infinite loop. And the reason why I recommend it, and the reason why I say it's infinite loop, you can run this for indefinitely. Like, you can literally let your computer run this for 4 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours. For a laptop, I wouldn't recommend doing that because a laptop might get stupid hot. But for a tower, for stress testing a proper tower or proper PC, I know some people are going to get mad that I say that, but it is what it is. Your temperatures should not get any higher than like 67, 68. Now, for a proper tower, you can run this as long as 4 hours. You can run this as long as a day, 2 days. Now, should you do that? No, because it's a little hard on the equipment, and it's a little hard on the graphics card itself because it's running nearly 200 watts, and that's going to push your power supply a little hard. So this is more your power supply issue. So I recommend that if you're going to do a hard benchmark with this tool, I recommend doing at least 45 minutes. The reason why I say 45 minutes is so you can see anything and everything. You'll run in an indefinite loop. We'll let it go through this loop. We'll let it exceed to the next loop, and then it should reset back to the final loop. But before it does that, it's going to drop to nightfall and show nightfall, which is nice about this. And if you have all your settings maxed out with this tool, everything maxed out in quality before you launch it, you're able to make sure that you're running ultra. You can run sound or no sound if you like sound. I prefer to turn sound off if you're running a long benchmark because you probably don't want to hear this the entire time it's running. And it can be kind of loud after a while. Now, if you like hearing it, go ahead. We can hear it together. Yeah, okay, so you get the point. Now, it's going to drop to nightfall here in just a minute, and then from there, you're going to see this either drop, I believe it's going to drop, and then increase, and then drop again. So really, this should never be exceeding almost 70°C, at least in a good, well-cooled environment. If your house is really hot and you live in a really dusty environment or a really cramped area, it might run a little bit hotter, it might run in the 70s, it might run close to the 72s. But really, when something is considered overheating, is considered in the 90s. High temperatures is considered in the 80s. Mid temperatures is considered in the 60s to 70s. But high temperatures is 80 to 85, close to 90 is considered 90 to 90 to 100 is considered overheating. So 90 to 80, you're pretty much kind of in the boundary of, am I getting too hot? Should I be questioning if I'm getting too hot? And is it okay? If it's fluctuating from, let's say, 85 all the way down to 72 and then all the way back up to 85, that's fine. If it's fluctuating from 90 all the way down to 70, all the way back up to 90, that's fine for a while, but if the computer starts getting really hot and you start noticing it's getting toasty, you probably should close the game down for a bit, give the computer a break, give it like a 20-minute break, let the temperatures come down for 20 minutes. You ain't gonna shut the computer off or nothing to let it cool down. You can let it idle down and it will cool down naturally on its own. That's the nice thing about towers. If they're built correctly and they're set up correctly, they will cool down all the way down to 30 to 40 C naturally. You do not have to shut them down. Suppose some people also forget when it comes to towers. They panic when their computer's getting too hot. They go and shut it down. They don't think about going in and closing down all their applications. So as you can see, if I quit this application, the temperature is going to drop significantly. The CPU temperature should have dropped significantly. The CPU is in the 50s. And now it's dropping all the way back down to the 30s, 37s. So that is normal. Now, if I reset HW hardware monitor, it will obviously reset all the clocks that were there, and then they'll all be reset and then relived. So what that means is you won't see like 100C, 85C. It will start back at like the 30s and the 1%. So, for instance, this is now average, 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 average. So now you can get a fresh, look at your hardware in view as you're re-benchmarking. What that does is it will let you re-see it in live view and make sure you're resetting your hotspots. So you're making sure your hotspots are being accurate. That's also something else to keep in mind. If you're experiencing heavy crashes and random bugs and random glitches, make sure your power supply is doing a constant 3.3 on a Cinebench R23. You may have to turn around and run Cinebench again. If you're experiencing heavy crashes and weird bugs and all kinds of things and nothing seems to be going right, make sure this here is not dropping below a 3.15. If it's dropping below a 3.1, you're in trouble. That's a problem. This here should always be a constant 3.3, IS 3.4. This here should be relatively close to a 5 point volt, then sometimes a little bit to 4.98. The lowest this can hit on the lowest should be a 4.750, 4.550. And the reason why I say that is because once you drop below a 4.5, you're no longer at the 5 volt count, which means that you're underpowering your mouse, you're underpowering your keyboard, you're underpowering all your lights in the computer, you're underpowering everything that's connected to the sockets, like your CPU and everything like that, all your memory, your graphics cards running on the 12 volt section, which then if you scroll all the way down, you can see your power supplies, or not power supplies, sensors for the SSDs, hard drives, memory, video memory. You can see all that. Make sure this is all running correctly. Make sure the wattages are coming up correctly. GPU core, GPU power supply, frame buffer, power strip, 12 volt, which really the power strip, as long as that's not dropping below a 4 watt, because right now it's at 28 watts, so 6. So actually, let's say 10, 20, or would it be 10, 20, so hang on. 20, 25, 26, 27, 28. So right here would be the main. What I ever want to see though is you don't want to see your graphics card's wattage and none of this being like at least relatively close together. I mean, because if you add this to this, it matches relatively close. If you take this and add this to that, so like, there's some things you can match up if you know a lot about hardware. But the whole point of this here is you just want to make sure that your clocks and your wattages for your graphics card, these two sections, this one and this one, are the two you definitely want to make sure are adding up correctly. The reason why is because if not, you may have a cable problem. Check your cables, make sure your cables are correct. Most people may not even know this, but this is something to kind of help the community out. But that kind of helps y'all with benchmarking, checking your computer. If you're experiencing any more crashes or any more issues, go ahead and start a command prompt, run it as administrator, drop an SFC scan before you leave the video, SFC, sorry, SFC, and then you're going to go ahead and just copy, paste, drop in, enter, run, and then before you leave the video, we're going to go ahead and run a get. You're going to open another command prompt while that command prompt is running. You're going to open up Microsoft Edge, just get upgrade. It's going to get upgrade. Now, we're going to highlight that again while this gets done. Now, that's what it says as an upgrade. I don't need to upgrade that because I believe that was already upgraded. Upgrades available. I'm still going to do it. Oh well. I'll do it just for y'all. So, now that we're going to run winget all, this here should get all the updates that are not done in Windows, and it should help fix them. Then you're going to hit yes, which will make sure that there is proper clearance to update this file and its package. Now that the file and the package is updating, once it gets done, the computer will finish its update, finish the install, and then your best thing to do is restart the computer. Crazy that I came back to this home screen. I changed it and came back to it. It's crazy. You're just very sad for some reason. Why are you sad? My computer says it's sad. It says I'm sad today. You're making a video. Me. How dare you? I've never done anything wrong. So here's your background. No, I gotta make it funny, but it's funny because I have a slideshow of so many things. So once that gets done, it's gonna say installed. Now that the package is installed and everything is done, it says I have 18 unknown packages. You don't have to mess with unknown. Don't mess with any of that. Don't worry about any of that. Now that that is done, you can run an SFC scan before leaving the video again. And I know that sounds crazy to run it like a third time. I don't know why I keep typing stuff backwards. My dyslexia is being bad today. Then you're going to do that again, copy, paste, run, and then once it gets done, you're going to immediately restart the computer and call it a day as far as functionality issues go. Play some games, see if your games run fine. If your games don't run fine, it's probably your SSD. If you passed all of your benchmarks and everything ran fine, it's probably your SSD or hard drive. Or it's probably a bad install of the game. You probably need to wipe the game. I recommend a tool of Revoke Uninstaller. Revoke Uninstaller is a great tool to have. It's not really hard to get. It's not really aggressive to get. It's pretty easy to get and download. You can do the same thing with Cinebench R23. You can get that from Microsoft Store, and you can also pick up HW Hardware at HW Hardware or CPU ID. You can also pick up Heaven Benchmark at Heaven Benchmark. Thanks for watching. I will see y'all later. Like or subscribe, and thanks for watching.